Hi, this is Michael Williams, and I'm introducing the podcast known as ChideStudy Press. Now, this is a new podcast. I'm sure those of you listening have listened to many podcasts by now. This one will claim to be unique in three aspects. The first and most obvious is that it focuses on Chinese Australian history. So a very niche area, very detailed area of history, one that perhaps only a few people might be automatically interested in, perhaps people with Chinese Australian heritage, people of Chinese background, people, historians of particular interest. But I would claim that those, even if you're not interested in Australian history, the uniqueness of many aspects of this history makes it well worth listening to. So that's a unique aspect number one. Number two is that I won't actually be talking all that much in this podcast. What I'm doing is actually using a couple of AI mates of mine to create the podcast for me. So what I'm doing is in fact giving them the text and they turn it into an interesting podcast. And a little later I'll allow them to introduce themselves and discuss themselves what these AI people are up to. Using people, of course, in inverted commas. And finally, the third unique aspect of this is that while it's an historical podcast in the usual format of telling you about aspects of history, it's actually based on a press, that is to say, ChideStudy Press. And there will in fact be a prize or a free book to anyone who guesses where ChideStudy actually comes from as a name. So basically what I'm doing is I still believe in text. I do believe that people should read history more than anything else rather than listen to podcasts, which are interesting but lazy, entertaining way of doing things. So what most of these podcasts will actually be summaries of text, books, articles, other aspects of things that I've actually written. And so they summarize. They don't give you the full story. They certainly don't give you all the nice juicy footnotes. And so the idea is I'm hoping that you will actually go to ChideStudy Press. You look it up on the internet, you'll find there's a website. There's also a website called Chinese Australian History in 88 Objects. You can write to me, you can order books. I will send them to you. Most of these books will be, of course, print-on-demand style books, but very well worthwhile. So now I'll just let the AI people talk to you, introduce that aspect of it, and then I'll give you a bit more information about the kinds of things you can look forward to in this podcast.
All right, so you ready to dive in?
Absolutely, let's do it.
Okay, great. So today we're taking a deep dive into Michael Williams and his ChideStudy Press.
Okay.
And specifically how he's using AI to, well, summarize his publications.
Interesting.
Yeah, and we're working from this PDF, deepdive.pdf, which is pretty meta, right?
Yeah.
But the thing that I think is really fascinating here is that he's using Google's Notebook LM.
I see.
And this AI, it actually introduces itself in the document.
Oh, wow.
Which is, I don't know, kind of freaky.
Yeah, it is pretty wild. They basically say, hey, we're not human, but we can help you understand this material.
Right. Like they acknowledge that they're this artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
But they're saying they can still help us, have a conversation about it.
Exactly, yeah. Facilitate a conversation.
So when you first read this, what was your first reaction to this whole thing?
I mean, I was fascinated by the idea that AI could be used to summarize complex information. Like you said, he's using it to summarize these publications.
Right.
And ChideStudy Press, they put out some pretty dense stuff, So the idea that you could get the key takeaways without having to wade through all the jargon.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty huge.
It is huge. That's exactly what it stood out to me, too. He talks about scientific papers.
Right.
And how, you could use this AI to just pull out the core findings.
Yeah.
And that would be incredibly useful for students, for busy professionals.
Absolutely.
For anybody really who doesn't have time to read a whole, 50-page paper.
Yeah. And think about it. This Notebook LM, it's a large language model.
Right.
From Google.
Right.
It's been trained on this massive amount of text and code.
Right.
So it's not just regurgitating information, it understands it and generates human-like text.
Yeah, that's the thing that I keep coming back to is
how much of the human element
is
lost in this translation, so to speak.
It's a good question. I mean, can AI really grasp the nuance,
Right.
the creativity,
Yeah.
the things that make human writing.
Yeah, like a good turn of phrase,
Exactly.
Like, can AI do that?
I think it's a valid question. We don't know yet,
That's
right?
right.
But think about it this way.
Okay.
We use calculators for math.
Right.
We don't expect them to replace mathematicians, they're tools.
Right.
And I see AI as a similar kind of tool,
Yeah.
a partner in learning,
Okay.
not a replacement for human analysis and creativity.
So not taking over, but giving us a new way to access.
Exactly.
Okay.
And it's interesting, ChideStudy Press is really focused on, they publish some pretty niche stuff,
Right.
like really specific philosophical and historical topics.
Yeah, stuff that usually stays in academia.
Yeah, locked away in journals that nobody reads.
Right. But this AI could open that up to a much wider audience.
And that's I think the really exciting part of this.
Absolutely.
Is that it's making this information
Yeah.
that's normally not accessible.
Exactly. And the fact that they call these AI summaries deep dives.
Right.
I mean, come on, that's pretty meta.
It's very meta, like the AI is doing what we're doing.
Exactly. Yeah.
Analyzing and discussing.
It makes you think, how we frame information and how that could change with AI.
Yeah.
It's really fascinating to see what Michael Williams is doing with this.
It is. So to sort of bring it back to our listeners, what we're looking at here is ChideStudy Press, led by Michael Williams,
Right.
is using AI, specifically Google's Notebook LM,
Yes.
to create these summaries of their publications.
Right.
And they're calling these deep dives.
Right.
And the goal is to make complex information more accessible.
Exactly. And it makes you wonder, does using AI to summarize and discuss complex topics actually enhance human learning, or does it take away from it?
It's a question that we don't have an answer to yet, but
Yeah.
it's definitely something to think about as AI becomes more and more part of
Absolutely.
how we interact with information.
Absolutely.
Well, this has been a really fascinating deep dive. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, this was great.
All right, and thanks to all of our listeners for diving deep with us today.
Okay, thank you very much. So that was how AI people talking about themselves. I tried to get them to discuss themselves as AI, but they didn't quite recognize what they are. That's another level of identification, self-identification, I suppose. So they will actually be giving most of the podcasts. Every now and again, I'll do introductions, of course, and every now and again I might do an intervention. They're not perfect when it comes to, say, pronunciations of some things, but by and large they get things correct. And as I said, most of these podcasts will be summaries of texts that you could read yourself as well. I'll also be introducing a series on Chinese Australian history, like an overview. That was originally a series of lectures I gave. They are available on YouTube. If you look up Michael Williams' Chinese Australian history, you'll find them popping up. But I'll redo them also as in podcast style. And again, you can flick back and forth between the podcast or the YouTube if you wish. But things coming up will be things like Chinaman's Well, which is a mysterious well attributed to Chinese Australians that in fact has nothing to do with Chinese Australians. There'll be other myths along the way that I'll go into, but I'll also be talking about history, particularly the history of the road walk, gold mining. I'll talk about observations by Europeans of Chinese Australians, and of course Chinese Australians' observations of themselves. There'll be a variety of other things, comparisons with the United States, deep dives into the villages in China itself. We'll also, of course, be looking at a group of Chinese Australians that are often forgotten, which is the men from Amoy, which predate the gold rush, and who are a fascinating group who provided many ancestors to today's Australians. So that's just a taste of some of the things that are coming up. And then you'll see then if you duck onto the podcast, you'll see I've already got 2 or 3 things lined up ready for you to look at. So please enjoy the podcast. If you look more information, there will always be mentions of the ChideStudy Press that you can look up, or Chinese Australian History in 88 Objects, or Gmail, ChideStudyPress@gmail.com, which you can write to for either more information or to order books. Because as I say, books are part of this podcast that ChideStudy, why I've named it ChideStudy Press rather than Chinese Australian History. So thank you very much, and I'll enjoy any feedback you might care to give. This Michael Williams signing off for this introduction.